We have flagged off that Indian Ocean ship Sagar, with partners in this region. And there are lots of countries in this region who need our partnership there for training, for monitoring their EEZ, for coordinated patrol on a range of issues. This is an advantage conferred by geography. Otherwise, if you see, most of its navy has been decimated, its air force is down, but geography gives it certain advantages. Now, how does that bear out specifically with regard to mine sweeping or mining first? Islands are important, or you must worry about choke points. Irony dies a million deaths, as we say when we hear these sort of questions, because it's we who are talking about. But to compare today islands to an aircraft carrier is an apples and oranges comparison. To say that something is an unsinkable aircraft carrier as obtains in other two services too, but the Navy actually debates on many of these things. I don't think there is any sort of orthodoxy with regard to what we must have. Having served in the Navy,
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Maritime Conversations. We are having another special today. This, of course, follows our previous special on the U.S., Israel, and Iran war that's been ravaging West Asia. So it's been our endeavor at Maritime Conversations to bridge the gap between academicians and geopolitics, geostrategists, and the curious citizen who's looking at these events. We're trying to cut the clutter. In the last episode, we aimed to cut the clutter on the sinking of IRIS Dana. And if you haven't, taken a look at the episode yet, please do so. It's on our channel. Today we are, following it up with another episode, another special, and we're going to be discussing about the new happenings in the West Asia war. And as usual, we have Commodore Kesnur joining us. Hello, Commodore. Welcome to the show.
hi Swaroop, good to be back again and good to be discussing what's happening around us with you.
Right. So we, of course, had our longest maritime conversation, the last episode where we unpacked all that was happening in West Asia. Now, of course, there are much more dates that have happened, a lot of action going on in the theater. So let's kind of unpack that in
Yeah,
this
sure,
episode.
sure, sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, so I think the first thing that we should talk about, and this is something that we kind of discussed in the last episode as well, but I thought we need to unpack it even further. The commentary is still existing about the maritime security architecture in the Indian Ocean region. And to put it very simply, has our standing as a preferred security partner in the IOR taken a beating? Hold on.
No, not at all, not at all. And as we discussed last time, but you are right, in view of much of prevailing commentary, and I dare say it is extremely uninformed. I think we need to discuss this or stress on this again. And please, we need to remember that India's maritime security architecture or any security architecture has never said or suggested that we will go to the aid of country A or B or C in case of a war. We are not part of any military alliance. We have not promised any such assistance, nor have we sought any such assistance. So, if there are two countries fighting war, and it is not that Indian Ocean has been alien to wars. In fact, as we have brought out in previous episode, there have been constantly conflicts, war, action, operations, aircraft carrier operations, missile warfare, all of that happening in the Indian Ocean. So India has never been party to war where other nations are involved. Our security architecture in the maritime domain, which we have sort of articulated in the form of certain professional forums, such as the IONS or Milan, or in form of say informal slogans or acronyms such as Sagar or Mahasagar, are all about enhancing mutual security against a range of threats that obtain in the Indian Ocean region. Now, these, let us be specific, are non state threats because state to state fights is war. It comes to the domain of maritime defense. But there are a lot of non state issues, and these need to be emphasized. Piracy, it still happens. Terrorism through the sea, we have been, hurt by that. Illegal, unregulated fishing, people smuggling, material smuggling, ecological devastation, gun running, nuclear items proliferation. So a lot of these things happen in this region, and
Right.
of course, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief issues. So India's maritime security architecture, as a preferred security partner and first responder, is that if any country is in a crisis and asks us in a when she's not in a war with anyone, is that we go and help, taking due political clearances. Second, and more important, at a larger level, we help build capabilities and enhance build capacities and enhance capabilities of our partners in this region, and that, unglamorous as it seems, is a continuous ongoing effort. Just to give you an example, Swaroop, we have flagged off that Indian Ocean ship Sagar, with partners in this region. And there are lots of countries in this region who need our partnership there for training, for monitoring their EEZ, for coordinated patrol on a range of issues. And I don't think these things will stop no matter what is happening in West Asia. Of course, all of us would want that war to end quickly. Of course, there are a lot of follow on effects of that. But to imply that just because this happened in a perceived geography close to ours and say no, India standing has taken a hit, I think that's completely wrong. Two more quick issues. Operationally, as far as naval warfare is concerned, it is not limited to a terrain. Just because
Yeah.
West Asia or the Gulf is perceived to be the main terrain, it doesn't mean that the naval warfare has to concentrate there. You can have moral and political views on whether the US should expand this or not. But operationally, America has shown or taken advantage of operational flexibility. We must remember that. And unfortunately, certain rhetorical flourishes by top American leadership and triumphal statements seem to make it that they are mocking or jeering at someone, but that does not affect or impact India. So we must remember that. Thirdly, remember the America is at war, and whether we like it or not, America is the superpower number one. It is the global hegemon at this moment. So, for anyone to suggest that India, as a security provider, partner, that our security architecture has to go against America or something like that, are living in a fantasy world. So, our standing as a preferred security partner is independent. Our maritime security architecture stands on the strength of its own, and this is what our partners and collaborators and friends in this region appreciate.
Got it. So I think it's quite categorical, from you.
It is, and this categorical thing needed to be said as well.
Now
Because
let's
so many scholars one respects have, like I said, come out with very, very unfortunate or ill-informed comments.
Right. Let's now turn our gaze from the Indian Ocean region to the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. I think the Strait of Hormuz is probably among the few words that have been uttered the most in the last week, maybe couple of weeks. Now, the Strait of Hormuz, of course, is the channel or the waterway connecting the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, and at its minimum, it's probably only about 20-25 nautical miles wide. So it becomes a very important strategic choke point. And of course, because of the war and Iran blockading or the Strait of Hormuz, it's wreaked havoc in the markets, global markets. So let's talk about the blockading itself, if I may call it blockading. Essentially, Iran has been mining the Strait of Hormuz, or that's what the reports say. So let's talk about the mining of the strait, and of course, more importantly, the mine sweeping. Because you served on a minesweeper. So let's unpack that. Commodore, the Strait of Hormuz, the mining and the mine sweeping of the strait.
Yes, so I'll attempt to answer that in two parts, Swaroop. First is that as the coastal state on the strait, Iran has distinct geographic advantages,
Right.
and therefore it is able to threaten traffic in the strait using a combination of weapons at its disposal, which are kamikaze drones,
Yeah.
which are missiles, which are their small coastal vessels, and which are mines. Now, as you have brought out, that it has reported or threatened to use mines, and
Right.
these are weapons of what we call sea denial, extremely effective in choke point or in strait, both for the physical damage and the psychological damage that they can cause. And one may argue that this is a kind of last throw of dice by Iran, but I'm not getting into that because uh, other experts can delve into that.
Right.
So this is Iran now using all elements of sea denial to try and hold sway over the strait. This
Right.
is an advantage conferred by geography. Otherwise, if you see, most of its navy has been decimated, its air force is down, but geography gives it certain advantages. Now, how does that bear out specifically with regard to mine sweeping or mining first? See, it is like this. As I said, mines are extremely effective because they're also economical. They can be either floating mines, which hit the hull of a ship and they explode, or they can be tethered. They can be tethered underwater,
Yeah.
moved by certain mechanism, and the minds get actuated or triggered by the other. Could be acoustic, the noise signature of ship, the electromagnetic signature, or sometimes the pressure signature. So there are different ways in which these can be triggered, and obviously they are used in interstate wars, and we can go to a couple of historical recollections with regard to our own history. They are extremely effective. Why are they effective? Because the damage is disproportionate. It can cause a huge hole in the hull. It causes a psychological mayhem because you don't know from where the threat is coming,
Right.
and it can hit unsuspecting. And so merchant ships usually in the strait, if they hit, it sends ripples of shock. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is what we must remember. Now, how do you counter that? So see, mines can be laid by what are called mine layers. Often even opportunity craft, fishing vessels, some other vessels with temporary arrangements can also lay mines. But to clear mines, you need what are called the mine sweepers. First you need to hunt for
Right.
mines, mine hunters, which can detect mines, or you need to sweep them. And because mine sweeping is very, very arduous, and often you can't clear a whole area of mines, you create what are called swept channels. Or now these are paths within where you want to go, which is clear of mines, and you divert your traffic, or you direct your traffic to go there, and ensure safety and security in that much region, and then come back to sweep in other parts if required. So this is basically the technical aspect of it. Now, why is this playing a more than king size role in the current conflict? Is, please remember that if you were to put big ships to fight it, unfortunately at this point of time, I don't think there are any minesweepers around of the countries involved in the war, nor is there certain global coalition to sweep mines. So if you have to use bigger ships, Warships today, advanced warships, destroyers, and above frigates cost more than $1 billion, whereas one mine costs a few $1,000s. So defense against that becomes, often countries that have to get in here, weigh their options, and say, look, uh, it might then be better to use back channel or diplomacy or something like that. If ultimately at some point of time push comes to shove, it is necessary to clear this area, it's necessary for global traffic to follow. I'm sure certain protocols will be designed, certain mechanisms will be designed, countries of the world may get together, they may pool in minesweepers, and that effort may start. Escorts may also be there. You know that India has also been escorting ships as part of Operation Sankalp. But
That's right.
countries on the whole are somewhat loath to put big, high-value ships meant for blue water operations in very narrow, contested straits and in narrow waters. Because of that, it seems that Iran at this point of time has disproportionate leverage over what's happening on the strait. And it is so, as I said, at this point of time. But this situation is not going to last for an eternity, because at some point of stage something might come. you know and therefore even now people believe that diplomacy, back channel, information exchange, having lateral means of communication, and escorting your ships with someone, at best light escorts, being there with them, is a better way to get your ships out than to commit forces there big way to fight Iran.
Right. So I think this gives me a the right segue to the next question. Conrad, so you spoke about how being a choke point and Iran fundamentally having a geographic advantage, large ships which have been designed and operate in blue waters don't really have an advantage here. Now, this is basically being cited by commentators to suggest, or rather, write the epitaph of the aircraft carrier. And a lot of commentary going on that India mustn't pursue the dream of having aircraft carriers. Um, the USS Gerald R. Ford left the area. Of course, she wasn't there in the Gulf of Oman, she was in the Red Sea, but she had to leave for whatever reasons. So that's also been cited, saying two or three carrier strike groups haven't been really able to uh, lift the blockade or escort the tankers out of the Strait of Hormuz. So your thoughts on that? I mean, being a Navy man, I know which direction we will be going, but still, I think your thoughts.
Yeah, good, happy, and thankful that you asked this question. And again, I'd like to sort of come in from this from three or four angles or perspectives.
Right.
The first, of course, is we must understand that there are some weapons for sea denial and some for sea control. Aircraft carrier is a sea control platform. Now, one may argue about where you need sea control and sea denial and when, and there's huge amount of studies on that. But we must understand what these are meant for, and therefore where they will be employed and how. Second thing is that aircraft carriers bring in a lot of advantages in terms of here and now sea power, air defense, maritime strike, and particularly if you don't have bases from where to operate your aircraft from, your aircraft carriers are the ones that you go in for. Including in the current conflict, as several commentators have pointed out, that the aircraft carrier strike groups are very much in operation and very much providing air power component to the overall effort. Now, why some ships have been redeployed or not, there are various reasons, but certainly
Yes.
I don't think they have got anything to do with whether or not Iran has mined this place and how must. If someone were to suggest that a carrier strike group were to escort merchant shipping through narrow strait, to me that would be extremely ridiculous assertion. We need to go a bit more into that. But let me take it from three or four angles, Swaroop.
Right.
And some of them are from what may be called first principles approach. The first thing is that serious scholars or historians do not start taking historical lessons when a war or a conflict or an event is on. I mean,
Right.
commentary is fine, some sort of analysis is fine, and we indeed live in a kind of 20 world. But to come to sort of flippant conclusions based on what is happening when the fog of war is still on, I think does not behove good commentary in this regard. So I think you must wait for these wars to get over, conflicts to get over, and by all means, people can draw different type of lessons. People can differ, but it is on. Second, to me, personally, as a retired armed forces person, people from different services bickering in public is not necessarily a good signal. There are ways and avenues and forums where these can be brought, including leaving a lot to the serving people who we must trust their judgment. But it's not a very good sight when expert commentators of different services try and be parochial about their service or their service interests. So these are some, I think, important points. But now let me come to other more sort of substantive issues. You know, see, remember, as far as aircraft carriers are concerned, as we have said, a country has to decide when and where it needs what sorts. And you need sea control, you need sea denial, you need balanced forces. It also depends on who your adversary is going to be. So it's a function of time, space, person, and all of that. So to just see one particular situation, it is like me saying that since the US has lost a few aircraft in this war, that there should be, it means that you don't need air force or air power. In fact, aircraft carriers are about use of air power on the sea, except
Right.
that air power employed and used largely by people in the navy. And I must tell you this, that I'm sure it obtains in other two services too, but the Navy actually debates on many of these things. I don't think there is any sort of orthodoxy with regard to what we must have. Having served in the Navy and having been, the director of Maritime Warfare Center, I can tell you that these issues are debriefed and constantly discussed, and what are the strengths and the disadvantages that each platform brings to warfare in general. I think this comes up for discussion frequently. So the Navy is not ever not had discussion on many of these issues. It constantly has them. Above all, what I find a little intriguing is this. It was the Navy that actually emphasized maritime geography. I remember 20, 30 years ago, people would often say, यार तुम लोग हमेशा choke points के बारे में बात करते हो, sea lines of communication. Our friends in other two services and all would say, your presentations, when they were land obsessed and continental warfare obsessed, they would think that these are distant things. यार तुम लोग कॉमर्स प्रोटेक्शन की बात करते हो, सी लाइन ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन, choke points. Every time the navy comes in, the choke points comes in and all that. So we used to be told that you guys bore the hell out of us talking maritime issues. Now, at one level, it is welcome when diplomats, officers from all services, commentators, academicians talk much more about the seas. I welcome that because it means that there is greater awareness of commerce, is greater awareness, for example, about our dependencies on Strait of Hormuz and how we must build comprehensive national power at other times. But it is the Navy that has been in the forefront talking about choke points geography. It's the Navy that has been in the forefront of talking about islands and their importance. is the navy that in fact yielded in when setting up the Andaman and Nicobar Command and made it tri-service in character. So for us now to be told that islands are important or you must worry about choke points, irony dies a million deaths, as we say when we hear these sort of questions, because it's we who are talking about it. But to compare today islands to an aircraft carrier is an apples and oranges comparison. To say that something is an unsinkable aircraft carrier, as many people, experts have brought out, that you don't need to sink an island, you need to make the airfield there non-operational for use. Now tell me, is it easier to render an airfield unusable if you know where it is in case of a fixed land asset, or you don't know, or you may not know where it is in case of an aircraft carrier? I mean, nobody is suggesting that aircraft carrier is a perfect platform. But as of such, there are experts that will need to weigh in on this. But overall, I find the tone and tenor of this commentary of the aircraft carrier ironical, flippant, and somewhat unfortunate.
Yes, so the debate is quite unfortunate, but I guess all for the better. More the debates that we have, I think.
Yes, I take that point. All for the better. I think I must thank you. You introduced perhaps an element of good academic thinking into this. Yes, all for the good. I think we need to have more such debates, and I'm sure ultimately our collective thinking at the top will reflect
Yep.
the best solutions.
Super. So I think these are the questions that I wanted to discuss, Commodore. We probably have, given how the war is shaping up, we probably have another special shortly.
Yeah, we could discuss that. I mean, quickly, of course, I think Iran is not buckled down as people had expected,
Yeah,
and that, of course, brings its own set of issues, but we could discuss that some other time.
definitely. Super. Thank you so much for joining us, Commodore, and thank you, viewers, for joining us on this special episode of Maritime Conversations.